Okay, Tammy. So I'm excited. We got some really good questions that came through for you on these burning podcast questions that people had.
I
So,
love it. I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's do it.
okay. So the first one that's really good is how long should my podcast be? Do you find more people listen to shorter podcasts or will people listen to the entirety of longer podcasts as well?
Shorter is always better. Now, having said that, it really depends. The length of your podcast really kind of depends on your audience, number one. But you always want to go shorter if you can, because people, if you can get under 30 minutes, that's great. Because that's usually people's they're trying to, they're chopping vegetables while they're listening, they're on a walk while they're listening or watching, depending on if you have video or not. But the th I don't like to say, "Oh, I need this podcast to be 30 minutes, so I gotta wrap this up." I would rather your podcast be a little longer if you have really great content. People are gonna come for the really great content. They're not always gonna come for the, "Oh, well, it's less than 30 minutes, so I'm gonna listen to it." No. So try and keep it under 30 if you can, but really focus on the really good, high quality content, and that's gonna bring listeners every time.
Yeah, I agree. I personally know that I will pick a podcast because it's one that I absolutely love. And if I'm doing something, I'll keep doing something so that I can finish it, regardless of how long it is.
Right.
So I love that because that's really good, especially if there's really good content. That's the most important part.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So we're going to get a little technical here and
Oh, I
let's
love
talk
it.
about microphones because those
Oh,
are your
microphones.
favorite. I
I
know they
love them.
are.
I love my little baby microphone here. Love it, love it, love it. I do.
So the question is, what is the difference between a USB and an XLR microphone?
Okay. USB, it literally plugs into the back of your computer. That's all you need. Microphone, computer, and you're ready to start recording. XLR is the next level up, but it is the gold standard for recording audio because of, not to get too technical in this, but it just does a better job of capturing the sound and then filtering it through because it goes through a digital interface and then into the computer. This is what usually, and you can tell by the back end, this is the Rode Pod Mic XLR, and so it's got a different cord that goes into a digital interface like a Rode Procaster or the Scarlett interface that takes the this sound and turns it into something digital. So you can go either way. You're gonna get better sound with the XLR every single time. But the USB, if you're just getting started in podcasting, you don't know how long you're gonna be doing it, you don't have a lot of money to invest in it, you can get a really great Audio Technica or Samson microphone, even a Rode microphone for relatively an if your budget's kinda on the lower side, you can get a really great high quality microphone for that. Yeah.
So, to go along with microphones, let's just have a conversation about the must haves to get started, right? I'm new to this. I
Mhm.
want to get started. I want to do this from my home. What essentials do I need?
So, if you're first getting started in podcasting, the main things you're gonna wanna have, obviously, you're gonna need a computer to capture that audio. That's the easiest way to do it. If you have a Mac, you already have GarageBand, you're good to go. If you have a PC or you don't want to use GarageBand, there is always Audacity. Now, there's other different things that we can get into later on how to capture audio, like if you're in the field, you're at an event, something like that. But for most podcasters, your computer and your microphone going to be that. The other thing you may want to look at is getting a pop filter. And so it's just a little filter. Like a lot of microphones have internal pop filters, but there's also ones that you can buy on Amazon for like 10 bucks. And it's just a little physically a filter that goes in front of it that captures when we speak, we have a tendency to do what we call plosives, where it's like little puffs of air with certain consonants that we make. So that filter literally stops the microphone from picking up that puff of air. You may hear it on audios that are not edited well with that p or b sound. So that's what that filter's for. I highly, highly recommend. That's really all that you need to get started. There's lots of other tech. There's video and there's lighting and there's all these other things, but just a microphone, a computer, and a way to record it, and that's it.
That's great. I love it because it makes it so easy, and there's one less barrier to getting a podcast going when you
Absolutely.
think of how simple it could be. So I
Yeah,
love that.
and it really is very simple to get into podcasting. The barrier for audio podcasting is very, very low.
So, going along the lines of starting a podcast, since we talked about the essentials that you need, one of our questions is how soon before I launch should I start promoting my podcast?
There's different schools of thought on this depending on who you ask. And depending on your audience, always, I like to start about 2 weeks. I might drop a couple of Easter eggs here and there in the weeks leading up to it, but 2 weeks out, I'm just starting to talk about it. I may share a graphic, I may share the name, I may say, "Hey, I'm starting this podcast. What would you like to hear about?" And really get that audience feedback from it. And then the second week, which would be launch week, I'm gonna start implementing my launch team strategy, and I'm gonna really get the word out to all everybody on the email list, on the social media, all those types of places, and really put so much promotion into launch week. So it's kind of like a slow ramp up. Other people may say just do it on launch week. If you have the audience to do that, by all means, you got to do what works best for you, the timetable that you have, as well as the audience that you're trying to capture.
Yeah, so I picked up something in there that I think would be really important for everybody to understand, and that is your Easter egg. What is an
Yes.
Easter egg? Tell us what that is.
The best example I can say of an Easter egg is you s Taylor Swift is the queen of dropping Easter eggs into things. She will very subtly start to promote certain things before she drops a new album, she announces something, she'll wear the colors of the album, she'll use certain words, maybe she'll talk about a particular song or things in a particular song. Those are all Easter eggs. We see them sometime in Marvel movies where you may see something from Iron Man in Ant-Man or something to that effect where it's kind of leading it's all these little crumbs that are leading you to something bigger so that when you finally see the thing and you go back and go, "Oh, that's where it was all the time." So, yeah, Easter eggs are very, very big. I use them all the time, and maybe we'll be seeing some real soon. You never know. There's a little bit
Hmm.
of the secret sauce behind there. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So, if somebody already has a podcast and they're into it, but they're looking at making a change, maybe the name, tweaking the focus, is it better to start from scratch or just launch at a new season?
Well, it I know this isn't the best answer, but as my friend Allie Worthington says, it depends. If you're making a switch and you're still remotely in the same vein, you're still talking about a similar topic. So let's say maybe you're talking about how to market a business, and then you move to how to market a direct sales business. That I would keep in the same thing. You're just rebranding, you explain what you're doing, you tell everybody, "Hey, this is what we're moving into now." But if let's say you're talking about you're marketing your business and then all of a sudden you want to talk about, raising Highland cows, totally different. You need to start a brand new RSS feed for that. Cuz that cut people are going to be like, "I have no idea what she's talking about. I don't I like I don't even like cows. I mean, I don't know who doesn't like cows, but it's just an example.
Sign me up for the Highland cows. I'm all about that. So I picked up a phrase in there that I think would be important for you to explain, and that is the RSS feed. What is that?
The RSS feed, so RSS stands for really simple syndication. So prior to RSS, if you wanted to share a file, you would literally have to share it with all the people. Like it's got to go here, it's got to go there, it's got to go all these places. With RSS, you put it one place and it goes out into multiple directions instantaneously. Most of the time, except for Apple, they're always like an hour behind. So you create a podcast, you upload your file to whatever your host is, whether it's Libsyn or Buzzsprout or wherever it is, doesn't really matter. You hit publish, it publishes, and when it publishes, it's going to go out to all the places you want it to go instantaneously. As opposed, so if you think about it like in baseball, it pri- prior to RSS, it was the pitcher throwing to the catcher and the catcher throwing it back. Now it's the pitcher throwing it once to all the people. Anybody who can catch that or has that the ability to catch it, then it's out there. So it makes podcasting, what is podcasting? It's coming from one solitary location and going out in multiple directions, and you don't have to send it and do all these other tasks. Makes it really simple.
Love it. Perfect. I didn't know what that was, so I'm so glad you
Oh,
explained it.
yeah, yeah.
So kind of going back to equipment a little bit, I think, because this is me being pretty novice in the whole podcasting industry. We had a question that came through that says, do I need an audio interface? Which one do I get? So many equipment options, and it's overwhelming getting started.
Yes, it can be overwhelming, and so let me just address that really quick. You don't need to have all the things all at once. Start small. If you only wanna do the USB microphone and your computer and that's all that you have, that's fine. Okay. So we're gonna take baby steps into this. The audio interface is basically what takes the XLR signal and puts it in a format that your computer can recognize it as a digital piece, and then that way you can manipulate those files. You can edit out the ums and the ahs and all the things and make it sound really great and all that kind of thing. So the audio interface is a piece of equipment. You can get the Rode Procaster, you can get the Rode Extreme. I'm a big fan of Rode if nobody can tell at this point, but anyway. Um so there's lots of different interfaces that are out there. The one I recommend is the Scarlett, as well as you can also get something called Zoom PodTrack, not to be confused with Zoom that you can record on. Um, but this is made by a company called Zoom. It's called the PodTrack, and it basically works like an interface. You can plug your XLR into it, and then plug that into your computer and it converts that signal. Or you could also use it out in the field. You're at an event, you're at a retreat, you want to record something because you're inspired. You plug your microphone in, boom, done. You can record, puts it on a little SD card, pop that into your computer. You can go straight into production mode.
So it's interesting that you talk about podcasting on the road. I guess I've never heard of that before. So give me some examples on where you would like what type of people are podcasting. Obviously, there's vlogging, right?
Yeah, so it could be vlogging, it could be you could be at an event, you could be at, let's say you're at Pod Expo and you've listened to a keynote and you're inspired and you go off into a little corner or you go back to your hotel room and you have this divine inspiration of like, "Oh my gosh, I need to talk about this. I need to record this now." You could just record right then and there. Boom, done. Some people I know, they because the production of podcasting, it could be very consuming, and so what do you do when you wanna take a vacation? You either have to work ahead, you've got a batch, which we all know here at Wildfire, we love batching, it's our favorite thing. But if you're on vacation, you could also record while maybe your family is off doing something that you don't like to do. You have an hour. You could record a quick podcast. You're inspired. You can record a quick podcast. So it doesn't always need to be in your home or in your studio that you have. You could be practically anywhere and record a podcast. Whip out your phone, record a podcast. Yep.
That's pretty cool. Honestly, as somebody who, when I'm sitting outside or I've gone somewhere and I get inspired,
Mhm.
that's a really great option because that happens, I think, to so many creatives
Mhm.
where you're out somewhere, you're in an environment, and
Yes.
it just lights you up and gets you inspired to do something. So I
Absolutely.
think that's really cool.
Yeah.
What if somebody is currently just an audio podcaster
Mhm.
and they are thinking, I need to tap into this video YouTube thing? What are your thoughts?
First, let me say, I am an OG podcaster. It's always been audio. It To me, audio is my thing. I love audio. It really depends on what you want to get from video. Like, what are your goals with this? Because in anything that we do, we have to have a why behind what we're doing. We shouldn't do anything just because the trends tell us to do it. You got to do what works for you, also your audience, because they're the ones that are going to have to tune into this. Now, video is kind of one of those trendy things right now. Everybody's looking into getting into video, and understandably so. But there's a little higher of a barrier with to doing a video type podcast as opposed to doing an audio podcast. Audio is a lot easier to edit. You can really fine tune edit that if you want to. Video, you can't have as many cuts because then you start looking like Max Headroom from the 80s. And if you're Gen X like me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not, Google it, go to YouTube. It'll be right there. But it starts looking very robotic. And the other thing is, if you don't know how to video edit, then either you're going to have to learn how to do that, you're going to have a subpar video, or you're going to have to hire a person and or agency to do this for you. And that raises the stakes considerably. So I think you really need to look at, and I don't know who submitted this and what their podcast is or anything like that, but I would really look at what are the goals for doing video. Do you need to put the whole video up there? Maybe not. Maybe you put clips up there. Maybe you just utilize YouTube Shorts. Again, comes back to the goals and the reasons for why you're wanting to do this. Personally, I don't think video podcasting is going to last for the long term because of some of the limitations that are there with YouTube. And I think people like just popping their earbuds in and going and doing the thing. They don't necessarily want to watch it. And it's really difficult to build a YouTube channel right now.
I think of the old saying, if everybody's jumping off a bridge, are you going to do that too? Right?
Exactly. I mean, it works, you know?
It does. It does.
So don't look always at the trends. Look at what you know that's going to work for your audience. Look into the analytics. You can try it, of course. Absolutely recommend try it, experiment, see what's working. But at the end of the day, those analytics are going to make your decision for you, not what some social media person says, "Oh, you need to do this, this, and this, and this," because you don't.
So the person asks, I know downloads are important, but what other metrics should I be looking at?
Well, yes, downloads are kind of important depending on what your reasons are. Again, everything comes back to reasons and why and goal and the strategy behind that. Downloads are only really important if you're trying to get a sponsorship or ads and that kind of thing. Personally, and our clients will tell you this, I say downloads are a vanity metric. I'm not looking what the downloads per se and only the downloads. I'll look at the downloads, but the most important metric, I believe, is the podcast consumption rate. How long are they listening to your episode? They may listen to your episode for a minute and a half. That counts as a download. They may listen to the entire thing. That counts as a download. So it's not really telling you anything about, well, did they like the content? Was that a good topic? Was did that guest translate well to our audience? It can answer none of those questions. It just how many people at least started to listen to the show. Consumption rate gives you a whole lot more information, and you can get that going straight into Apple Podcast Connect or within the Spotify ecosystem as well. That's why all these other metrics are so important. If you're let's say you're trying to decide, "Oh, what am I gonna do for the next season? What topics resonated?" Your analytics are gonna tell you that. It shouldn't be a and so for those that are watching, uh, let's just say it, I'm an Enneagram 8, I'm very practical, and I look at what my audience is telling me rather than what I feel or what I think or what my own goals may be. If my audience says, "I wanna hear more about how to grow your podcast," well, guess what the episodes I'm gonna do? How to grow your podcast, because that's what they want, and we need as podcasters, we have a responsibility to give our audience what they want because there's so many other choices out there. So look at your analytics, see what the information is telling you, and then make those decisions about what's it gonna be and what should I change or any of those kinds of things. So, yeah.
So when you think about consumption rate and that being one of the, I mean, your top analytic to look at, if my consumption rate is say 50%,
Mhm.
right? What are like 3 things that I could do to increase or look at to increase my consumption rate?
I would look at what those what that topic was. Why did they stop at that point? Did you switch to a different segment? Was what was happening was maybe the guest rambling on and they're like, "Okay, I've heard enough of this." Did did the interview end? So there's lots of things within that particular episode. Make sure that your audio is on point because with video, audio is a little bit more forgiving. But if you're straight up audio, your audio needs to be high quality because that's what people expect now. There's so many things with AI that you can use, Descript and Podium AI and all these various things that can help you remove noise and take out filler words. That there is no reason for bad audio anymore. When I started back in 2005, we all had bad audio. We know it, we claim it, all that kind of stuff. But in 2024, there's really no reason for that. So look at the audio, look at what's happening within that episode, make some changes, test, see what the response that you get, and then we'll do what we call fail fast. What happened? What did I learn from it? Take that lesson and apply it, and then continue to do that and see where it goes.
Perfect. So it made me think as you were talking that we should probably describe and explain what you mean by consumption rate, right? It's obviously a percentage,
Mhm,
but let's just do a breakdown of if you look at your consumption rate and it is 50%,
mhm.
what does that mean?
The average of people only got to 50% of your episode. That means they stopped listening halfway through. Now, the industry standard is around 60%. Here at Wildfire, we aim for 75%. I want them listening to all of your episode at least 3/4 of the way through. Now, you may be talking at the end about maybe a link or your whatever your CTA or call to action is, subscribe, rate, review, join the email list, whatever that is. They may not want to listen to that. I'm okay with that because they're listening to the main part of the content. So when you're looking at consumption, is it 60% or higher? If not, if it's 30, 40%, then you need to take a real hard, honest look at what happened in here. Why did they want to stop listening? Are you not giving them what they want? Did you promise them something and then not deliver? Was the storytelling not good enough for that particular episode? Was your guest just not great? Like, that's always a possibility. Were you off your game that week? I mean, we all have stuff that happens. So look at all of those things. 60% or higher is what you want to shoot for. If you're a wildfire client, we always shoot for 75.
So consumption rate sounds like it's most important because it really is the telling of whether or not the information you're
Mhm.
providing, what you're talking about is truly connecting with your
Absolutely.
audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes. Mhm.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so back where we were talking a little bit, what are dynamic ads and do I need to be concerned about them?
I would focus more on getting really great content, really great consumption rate, and going from there. Now, dynamic ads, so the way that most people produce an ad, generally speaking, is you record that as part of the episode. So it's very natural and organic, and you don't even realize that it's an ad. And it's what we call baked into the episode. It's dropped in. It's part of the episode already. We're not doing anything else. We upload that file, boom, goes out to and does its thing. Dynamic ads is a piece of software. Different podcast hosts have it. Buzzsprout has it. Megaphone has it. Podbean has it. Libsyn has it, but you have to have really high downloads in order to even be qualified for it. Where it's a piece of software that you say, place an ad here, and you give the timestamp in the software of through Buzzsprout or one of the other hosting places. And then you tell it, this is the ad I want you to play. Dynamic ads can be they have a lot of functionality. Television and radio have been using them for years. Podcasting, probably the last 5 to 7 years, we've started to see it in here. And so you can tailor it to very specific parts of the United States. So let's say, I'm in Iowa, you're in Wisconsin. So maybe we're having an ad. I could place an ad here about the Iowa State Fair. Well, people in Wisconsin aren't going to be concerned about the Iowa State Fair. They're going to be concerned about whatever, the Packers, you know? I don't know. It's the first Wisconsin thing to came to mind.
It's very true. It's very true.
But you can tailor those ads in that way. And the other thing about dynamic ads is you can make it relevant. So let's say here at Wildfire, we were running an ad on our podcast that is about something we have coming up. And we're having an event. Well, after that event's over and somebody goes back to listen to that particular episode, it's going to make it irrelevant. Dynamic ads, you can go back in and change that ad on the fly. You don't have to re-edit it and re-upload it and all that kind of thing. So it has its functionality for certain situations. You could use it for a call to action. You could use it for your own internal things like that. It doesn't take a lot of super fancy tech know-how in order to do it. Most of the hosts provide tutorials and things like that. It's just you're just going to pay a little bit more for some of that. Some programs you have to qualify for as far as downloads go. But if you're not going to be doing any of that, and you're just an independent podcaster, and you're just, let's say, doing a Bible study, you don't care about downloads, you're just sharing God's word, and that's all that you're about, because God has given you this calling, dynamic ads aren't going to be that big of a thing for you. So it just depends on, again, there's that answer, right? It just kind of depends on what your goals are, what you're trying to do, all of those pieces, whether you want to utilize them or not.
I like that. I think the great thing is that you just wanna take the pressure off of somebody who just wants to get their voice out there
Mhm.
because they know that God's given them a calling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Dynamic ads are one of those things that it is not required, it is not needed, and
Absolutely. Absolutely. You get to choose what you want to do. You don't have to be like all the other podcasters out there or even the podcasters that you're connected with. Everybody's show's different. Everybody's reaching a different audience. I don't care if you're both doing Bible study podcast. Your audiences are going to be different because we all have different life experience and we bring that to our podcast. So if you're out there watching and or listening to this and you're saying, "Oh, but I need to do this and that." No, you don't. You don't need to do any of it. You do it how you want it and your audience wants it. And at the end of the day, that's it. And God.
okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty because everybody wants to know all the good stuff about
Yes.
the best of the best.
Yes. Yes.
So, what is your recommendation for a recording platform?
Riverside.fm. They just came out with a brand new studio. It's got so many amazing things. You can live stream through it. You can record, locally, like so many things. That is my number one recording platform. It records in HD quality, audio and video. So you're going to get the best that your camera and your microphone and your computer all together is going to give you. Highly, highly recommend. The other ones, they're great, except for now y'all know I'm gonna bring the ones that I don't like, and there's really only one, and it's Zoom. While Zoom is great for meetings and brainstorming and strategy and connecting with other people, yes, but recording, that's not what it was built for. All these other things were built for recording audio and or video. And the reason it's not great is because it compresses that file, which gives you subpar audio and video. So you don't want to do it. If you want to use that for all your meetings, all your strategy, connecting with your audience, by all means, you go ahead and knock yourself out. But for recording the podcast, and if you want to use a platform, go with Riverside.fm. There's Zencaster. There's a bunch of other places. But if you're just recording audio, just do it on your computer. There's no sense in paying for something that's completely extra. If you're just recording audio. So yeah.
So, what are your top two computer recording programs?
GarageBand or Audacity would be the two most inexpensive. There's lots of other ones out there, but they get kind of spendy and they have so many bells and whistles that I think it's overwhelming for those who are not editors and not engineers that it's just way too much and you don't need it.
Okay, so now that we're done with recording, we're done with editing, now we've got to host this.
Yes.
What are your top hosting platforms?
As you said, I've been doing this for 20 years, and so Libsyn has been around since then. I love them. They're great. There's not a lot of bells and whistles with them, but they're a solid organization. Tech support is top notch. I've never had a problem with them. That is my usual go-to because they're just so wonderful. And they've been around for a long, long time. And they've seen the ebbs and flows of podcasting from back in, 2003, 2004, I think when podcasting was really first got started and kind of faded out. Now it's back. They're my number one. Number two is Buzzsprout. They've got a lot of extra features that helps the indie podcaster that maybe doesn't have an editor on that they're not paying an editor to actually do it. There's a lot of things that can help them. There's a lot of AI things that are built into that system. And my third one, because I have a new favorite, and that's Podbean. Podbean has a lot of really cool features. But what I like most is their dynamic ad system. It's one of the best. One of the things that I routinely get asked is how do I get over the overwhelm and the imposter syndrome? And first, let me just say it's a real thing. Everybody goes through it. I go through it whenever I'm launching something new. I'm doing something different than I usually do. Oh my gosh, do I really want to do this? What if I fail? What if I do this? What if I. Okay, so first of all, you are built for this. You have a story to tell that only you can tell. And it doesn't need to be like all the other things out there. It just needs to be how you craft it and how you choose to do it. The thing with podcasting, yes, there's lots of stuff out there and it could be very overwhelming from the tech, from what do I say? How do I record? I don't know what I'm doing. People are going to see that I don't know what I'm doing. It's okay. The Lord prepares us for this. And this is especially true if you were being called by Him to tell your story. He has created you to do this. He would not ask you without making, without providing all the things for you. You may not feel it. You may not recognize it in this moment in time, but He has. He made your mouth, just like with Moses. He gave him everything that he needed to have. So if you are thinking that and you're thinking, I want to start a podcast, but I don't know, and and this is so overwhelming and I'm just not going to do it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Please. Just take one step forward and then another step and another step. And I guarantee you, you can be a podcaster as well.